welcome to the show where we share the stories of the many who intersect with our healthcare system but are rarely heard from. My name is Kevin Poe, founder and editor of Kevin MD. Rate and review the show at kevinmd.com/rate. Subscribe at kevinmd.com/follow. Today on the show, we have Amanda Gwin. She's a nurse and a physician assistant. Her Kevin MD article is titled, "What and Who Needs to Change in Medicine for It to Be Sustainable?" Amanda, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Kevin. It's such an honor.
We'll get into the article in a little bit, but first off, just share your story and journey to where you are today.
Yes. Started off in medicine as a nurse and initially thought that I was just burned out with pediatrics because that's where I started. And then 10 years later on a long journey, I figured out I was actually beginning the burnout within medicine. But I didn't quite realize that yet. So I went back and got a bunch more education, became a physician assistant, joined a really busy internal medicine practice, worked as a nocturnist, and just kept going until my body said no more. And I was actually put on bed rest at 24 weeks because I went into premature labor. And the physician that was my obstetrician said, "There's absolutely nothing wrong with your body or this pregnancy. You are the problem." So I had to really assess what had I been living within, what had I been prescribing to, and just how I lived my life. And that's where I realized that I was burned out.
So what happened next? So you realized that you were burned out, you were having these symptoms, and people were telling you that you were exhibiting some symptoms of burnout. What were some of your next steps?
Yeah, so after the baby was born healthy, thankfully everything happened wonderfully. And then I had to kind of sit back and assess. And I had been in a lot of therapy in my younger years, probably 20 years total on and off. I felt like I had done a lot of work on myself. I felt like I was really strong, but I just didn't quite feel like I had the skills that I needed to navigate being my own advocate, taking care of myself, feeling my people pleaser, looking at where my validation was lying. And so I hired a coach. And that was me really healing my burnout and getting to the bottom. Burnout is a symptom of what's going on below. It can be very situational, but burnout is a symptom. And so I really got to the bottom of where my burnout was rooted in and was able to heal that root. And then I decided, whoa, this is so powerful. I need to be doing this for other people in medicine because this is the way that this system is going to sustain, is that we heal the people in medicine. And so the next coach that I hired was somebody who I said, "I need you to teach me how to do this. I want to learn how to help other people do this."
So when you went to see that coach and you said this coach got to the root of your burnout, so what exactly did this coach do and what exactly was the root of your burnout?
Oh, it's such a great question. Yeah. So what I've found is a lot of people that go into medicine have experienced a lot of trauma in their lives, or have just really had a hard, when you talk to people in medicine, more likely than not, you're going to have a group of people that understand pain. And I think that's what makes them so good at what they do, is that they really are able to empathize with people in crisis, in pain. And so, which is really beautiful, right? I mean, we don't want to change that. That's what makes them good at what they do. But when we don't heal, like, for example, say you were a child of an alcoholic and you did not heal that people pleaser, that need for all of the external validation, that big fix-it wound within you, then that's going to come through in your medical practice. So it's taking a step back. And the root of mine was I was a big time people pleaser, and it was a big time need for external validation, which were really, really well stroked within medicine if they weren't checked.
All right. So let's talk more about your Kevin MD article, and you go deeper into this. It's titled, "What and Who Needs to Change in Medicine for It to Be Sustainable?" Now, for those who didn't get a chance to read your article, just walk my audience through it and share the story of why you decided to write it.
Yeah, so it just came through one day. I was like, this needs to be talked about. So, I was trained on the nursing model and I worked within a nursing structure. And then I was trained in physician assistant school and under the physician model and worked with physicians. I really, truly experienced this toxicity on both sides. And the problem is that there is no room for you in medicine. There is no room for an error. There is no, hey, you're learning, you messed up, let's talk about this. It is definitely, you are the person that is attacked when you make a mistake. And of course, there's always room for, learning and everything. But I feel like this is the root of what makes it unsustainable, is that people go into it feeling like they have to be perfect. And it's really ingrained very, very early on in nursing school, early in nursing training. And then I saw it, when I was in my PA training, working at a university hospital, I see it within the med students. There is just this extreme pressure for perfectionism and performance. There's no room for the human in this innately human system.
So how can we go about making room for us, making room for the human? Because this sounds like a systemic problem. It's ingrained in us, in our training, whether you're going through that nurse pathway or the physician or physician assistant pathway. How do we make time for the human in medicine?
Yeah, I love that question. So it all begins with everybody in medicine holding up their own end of the bargain, which means doing their own healing, but then also making it just a general conversation. One of your recent podcasts, they were talking about neurological system regulation. And I know that's kind of a buzzword right now, but there is so much validity in that. And, just even making it understood, like, hey, you're going to be in a stressful situation. You're dealing with people's lives here. Let's teach you how to regulate your own neurological system. And then let's make that a common conversation. Hey, like, can you take over for 10 minutes? I got to go regulate my neurological system. That's what will keep us sustaining, is just healing ourselves and making this a conversation. And this has to come from the top, and it has to come from the bottom. It has to be part of how we are to take care of people, is also take care of ourselves.
So give us a real life example of that. So you are a physician assistant. So what would be an example of implementing that in a typical day that you would experience?
Yeah, that's a good question too. So right now, my practice is in neurocritical care. A big, big part of my job is having end of life discussions with families, siblings, children. Very emotionally taxing. I definitely have to take time throughout the day to go sit in a call room and breathe.
Hmm.
I have to take time to allow what I have been dealing with all day so that I can be present for my family when I get home. And I have to take time before I even get there to kind of align myself that, hey, I know there's going to be some really hard things today that I'm going to have to do, hard conversations I'm going to have. And a morning meditation is very important to me. And then I think that's more of a day-to-day thing. And then also educating people on really the symptoms of burnout and recognizing them and putting them throughout the entire span of the workday. Like, hey, like I recognize that you're kind of like at your end. Can you take 10 minutes and go take a break? Because in medicine we're very bad about taking breaks. So it's just starting the conversation among everybody.
We're talking to Amanda Gwin. She's a nurse and a physician assistant. Her Kevin MD article is titled "What and Who Needs to Change in Medicine for It to Be Sustainable." So Amanda, like you said before, there is a culture of perfection. There's a culture where the human is removed from medicine, and you're suggesting wonderful tips that healthcare professionals can apply during a typical workday. But sometimes that peer pressure, right? Sometimes that culture is so pervasive in terms of enforcing that perfection. It's hard to push back against that. Now, what kind of advice do you have if that culture pushes that perfection and makes it difficult to implement some of the things that you suggest? It makes it difficult to take that break, to breathe. How do you push back against that?
A couple of things. The biggest thing that I tell my clients, my kids too, I'm like, the way somebody treats you has so much more to do with what's going on inside of them than what's going on inside of you, or a reflection of what is your issue. So I think it's a matter of separating those opinions and the system from who you are and what you need and what is sustainable for you and what you're able to give when you go home. Our lives are not all in the hospital. There's also a part of us that we want to be available to the people in our homes when we go home, and so much of this is separating what is the system and what is you. And that is a very big ask and a very big call, and something that takes a lot of support, which is what I really love doing, is sitting with people, helping them embody this separation from the system and the human.
All right. And my final question, what are some of your take-home messages that you want to leave with the Kevin MD audience?
I have a lot of people that say to me, they're like, well, I'm so miserable in medicine. I've spent so much money in this profession. I'm stuck. And I say, no, you're not. I talk to people all the time who have either successfully left medicine and they're very happy and they see their training and their path as part of their journey and they're very happy with where they are. And I see people that heal these things that we've been talking about. They're people pleasers, separating the system from the human, and they learn to really thrive in medicine. If I can say anything to this population, I want to say you are not stuck. You are not stuck one side or the other. You're not stuck in medicine. And if you do want to do medicine, which I love medicine, I love the science. It's such a beautiful thing. The profession is wonderful. If you want to stay in medicine, there is a way for you to be happy and prosper in medicine.
Amanda, thank you so much for sharing your time and insight. Thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you, Kevin. It was an honor. I appreciate it.